Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for Micah. Thank you for the work that you're doing in his life. Help us to use our tongues to glorify you and to please you and not man. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Okay, so today we have a guest on the podcast. One of the coolest guys at the school. He's in the NCFCA team
Indeed.
policy. He does speech. He's an excellent guitar player. He does debate. He's a wannabe Tosin Abasi. He's going to be graduating Trinity Classical School.
2025.
2025.
1 year after us.
Shane, how do you know Micah?
So Micah he's a 10th grader, so he's a grade below us.
Right.
And I think I just met Micah at school. I'm a nice person. I see a new kid. I will go up and say hello. I did it as well. I always thought Micah was chill. And then I think I started getting really interested when I don't know if I followed you or you followed me on Instagram. But then I started to look at his reels, and that's where I started learning about his music side. Okay, his music side, and he plays guitar on there, and then we talked to him, and we also learned that he used to do a little bit of violin back in the day. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, maybe talk to us about the violin and how that came about, since that's your origin.
Yeah, sure. I'm an old classical violinist. So when I was 3, approximately, I was forced by my mom and grandpa to start violin, and seeing as I was 3, I didn't really have much of a choice. So, yeah, I did that for about 9-10 years, and then I kind of stopped when...
In the last, I guess, year or so, you started playing the electric guitar. Mm-hmm. How did that happen?
Ooh. So I started listening to, a band called Polyphia, and I was like, there's some really cool technical playing. So we had a few electric guitars laying around, so I asked my dad if I could play them, and yeah, that's how it started.
So Polyphia is your favorite band.
Second favorite.
Well, second favorite band.
Yep.
Tell us about Polyphia, though.
Okay.
What do they do?
Polyphia is four dudes. They got two guitarists, a bassist, and a drummer, and they do a bunch of instrumental stuff. Some of the recent stuff, they've had features where it's not as instrumental.
And then you've gone to at least one of their concerts before, right?
Yeah. That was real fun.
I mean, what do you think about rock culture and all the tattoos and the loud music? What do you think about the scene?
Is it satanic?
No, well, some of the genres, yeah, but most of the metal scene is fairly chill. I mean, it's a bunch of nerds with tattoos, I'd say.
That's a good way
most
to put
of
it, I suppose. I don't know. I've never been to a rock concert. My dad has actually always wanted to take me to a rock concert.
Really?
Yeah.
Any bands in particular?
I don't know. I mean, he grew up in the 70s, so 70s is his kind of thing.
Yeah.
Probably 70s band. He hasn't given names, but that's something I would definitely like to do with him. Maybe before I go to college or
That's a great idea.
when I come to summer. Yeah, because that'd be pretty fun. But it's interesting how you call them nerds with tattoos, because the reason I said satanic, I don't actually think they're satanic.
Right.
But that's the stereotype is
definitely.
the hell sign and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool how they could be a bit more chill, even though it's still really loud and loud.
Yeah.
I was gonna say upbeat, but that doesn't seem like the right word.
They are upbeat.
I mean, yeah,
Also,
okay,
Yeah. On the topic of music, you're currently writing a speech for NCFCA.
Yeah.
National Christian Forensics.
Good job, Shane.
CA. What does the CA stand? What is the
Shoot.
National?
I can't remember.
We don't know. Okay, anyways.
there's no CA.
So you're
do not
writing
know.
a speech on what makes music objectively good.
Yeah, I've been trying to research that because there's a lot of music that people would consider to be objectively bad, a bunch of the metal stuff. But even a bunch of the metal stuff is rooted in classical music to some extent, the motifs and just how it's constructed in terms of theory.
In terms of theory, so interesting.
So you think that so your evidence for rock music being objectively good is that it has classical elements, which you think everybody thinks is objectively good?
Well, I'm saying there's a lot of different sides to the matter. So I would say personally that objectively good music changes with culture. So it's not completely static.
So then, what would you say is objectively good music in like today's culture?
Today's culture, see, there's a lot of different genres. It's very hard to, distinguish one genre specifically.
Yeah.
Like most people would agree that classical is good. But now, like jazz, a lot of people see jazz as good, whereas in the 20s, when it was coming around, people thought that was the devil's music, that and the blues. And so that was, quote unquote, objectively bad back in the day, but now we see it as good. Some of it happens, in theory, and that's kind of what I'm going into, the theoretical aspect of it, because music theory is fun. Yeah, I'm not completely done with it yet.
When do you have to present it or say it?
Our first tournament is like January 5th, I
Okay,
think.
you got a little while.
Yeah, I do.
And you gonna work on it during like winter break and stuff, or is
Yeah.
that like the practice phase?
Yeah,
Because like it's closer to January.
I'm just going to finish writing it and then, practice it, say it to a wall a few times.
Yeah.
So you used to stream on Twitch.
Twitch
play,
streamer.
Play a little bit of video games.
I'm also a gamer, so I
Yeah.
respect the grind.
I mean, is that still something that you're trying to do? You've done it a decent amount in the past.
Yeah, in the summer specifically, that's when I found out about your Twitch streaming.
Yeah. I find it really fun to do, mainly in the summer, because I don't have to do school and other things like that. It's a nice way to chill, interact with other people. If you
And that's what most other Twitch streamers will say as well, is like the interactivity of like your audience. That's what really drives
streaming is really boring if nobody's interacting in the chat.
Yeah, because then that's just gaming at that point. It's
Yeah,
like,
it's just
there's
gaming,
no point in the streaming.
And
you spend all this money in the equipment.
People don't want to watch someone who's just gaming and not doing anything fun, right?
Yeah.
So if there's people interacting in the chat, then that makes the stream itself more fun, more lively.
Absolutely.
Much less dead.
Absolutely.
You got that equipment to do your streaming from a podcast that your parents did, right?
Yeah. They did a podcast a few years ago called Stories for the Road, and they talked about short stories and their authors, and it was pretty well produced, I'd say.
Do you have like favorite stories that you learned because your parents love short stories so much?
Ooh. Actually, I'd like to say one of my favorite short stories. I'm not sure if they covered on their podcast.
Really?
Yeah. And I learned it from Sci-Fi Philosophy with Miss Vanishment.
I love Miss Vanishment. Oh, she watches this.
I know.
I forget Miss Vanishment.
Hi.
Oh,
I miss Vanishment.
I forgot.
So,
Yes.
what's the story?
Sound of Thunder by Ray Bradbury.
Can you give us a summary?
Travel.
I love time.
So, the butterfly effect? It's basically that, but a short story. Dude goes back in time to try and kill a dinosaur, and he's told not to go off the path they made for him, but then he does that, and then he steps on like a butterfly, and then goes back to, the present, and then everything changed. Like
That's what the butterfly effect
The butterfly
is?
effect, is like you change one thing in the past, I think.
One super small thing,
but
and that
it has such a large effect on the future.
I didn't know that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time
the more you
travel is
know.
actually such an interesting topic.
It is.
That
Like there's so many different types of time travel.
Yeah, and time travel, because you know I'm like a movie guy and stuff. Like time travel, if done right in like movies or television, can craft or can be like the stem for such beautiful and amazing stories in like cinema. Like if you can get time travel right in a movie, like your story is going to be incredible.
What's your favorite
My favorite time travel movie?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This one, not a lot of people have heard of this. Okay, it's called, and I wouldn't. This is it's like R-rated and stuff. It's called Predestination.
Ooh.
Okay. This was with, are you aware of Ethan Hawke, the actor Ethan Hawke?
Yes.
Okay, Ethan Hawke is the star, and it has some lesser-known people. The basic of the movie, the basis is that it's this man, he's in a time travel agency, and he is meant to stop someone called the Unabomber, who's like the terrorist in the future, and he goes back in time to some random man, and this man has, for some reason, the key to stopping the Unabomber, right? And that's like a really, really basic summary. Because I highly recommend you going to this movie knowing like probably close to nothing.
Okay.
Because like it's one of those where
I got you.
it is mind blowing. Like it's insane.
So does it get super technical with the time travel
Yeah,
stuff?
yeah. You're not gonna understand the ending at first. Like it's
Okay.
like you're gonna have to see it more than once to like sort of get it.
That was me
It's-
with Tenet. Have you seen
Tenet.
Tenet?
Oh, Max is not a fan of Tenet.
Tenet is the most confusing movie.
It is so. It's like the best and worst of Christopher Nolan. It's like the
Worst.
audio mixing is
It's not
so
the worst.
Audio
Christopher
mixing
Nolan.
is the worst.
Okay, yeah, you can't really hear anyone in
Yeah,
that movie.
It's like loud
You need
and
subtitles.
You can't hear voices.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. But
I-
Tenet, Tenet, I saw this the second time I saw Tenet, I understood it.
Yeah,
that was for
same.
me. I only needed 2. Predestination, you need like 3 or 4.
Really?
Before you like semi.
Okay, I love it. Movies
It's
like
good
that.
though.
I'll
It's really
check it
good.
out.
And the summary I gave like sounds really basic. Like I said, like it doesn't sound good.
Right.
But like you watch it, it's insane. It's absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah, I got you. I'll watch it.
Yeah, it's so good, man. I love that
Nice,
movie.
nice.
What you said about like the butterfly effect is pretty interesting. Like the idea that one change makes a huge difference, right?
And that's such a cool like topic right for like a short story as well. So
Yeah,
yeah, that is really
Like one of the seniors at TCS made their thesis on, is this the best world possible, right? So like God is sovereign and he's like if God is all powerful and he's good, then he's going to make the best world possible and make everything work in the most optimal way, right? So that would mean that he's in control of the little butterfly things, right?
Right.
And that's really interesting. Just knowing that God's in control and in the minute details, and that it can.
That is an interesting
If it was
topic.
a little bit different, then it'd make a huge difference.
Which graduating class was this?
This was last year.
Okay. Yeah, I was at a debate tournament, so I couldn't
very
listen
nice.
to
Who said
anyone.
this one? Who said this speech?
Caitlin Haw.
Oh, Caitlin Haw did
okay.
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of tournaments, have you also done jiu-jitsu tournaments in your life,
Excellent.
Micah?
Oh,
Excellent.
I've never actually done tournaments.
But he sparred. He is sparred.
I
He has
spar.
sparred.
I
He has
spar
sparred.
like almost all the time, like
Yeah.
when I'm at my dojo. But I'm trying to find a new dojo.
Talk to us. Talk to us about the mindset in a sparring match.
Ooh.
What's your mindset when you know like you're gonna go after this guy? I know it's sparring, so it's not like a tournament. It's not
Right.
like I need to win this. But like, what's the mindset you got going on in there?
Ooh, I have to be aware of like everything my opponent does, like even small, minute position changes, because those could add up. You know.
Yeah.
Like the butterfly effect.
Exactly what I was thinking. Great connection there. But yeah, I have a very defensive mindset generally. I'm trying to change that because sometimes I feel I'm a bit too defensive.
Because is jiu-jitsu? I know boxing is like if let's say there's not a knockout or a knockdown, it's based on points. And like if you're too defensive and like your opponent throws, let's say I'm throwing at you and you're just defending everything,
Right.
But you're not throwing back. I still win the round technically. Is jiu-jitsu like that where it's point based? Round?
Yeah, I think a bunch of tournaments are done like that.
Okay.
Huh.
Yeah.
So
But
it's not
generally
just
when
like
I'm
tapping.
sparring, it's just going to tap.
Yeah.
That's the main goal for my sparring.
Nice.
I don't know. It's weird. Like, whenever I practice boxing versus like actually being in a boxing match, it's a huge difference. Do you think it's the same way for jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, I'd definitely say so.
So there's like a major learning curve for actually implementing the things you're learning.
Because if you're, learning a new technique, then you just get to practice it, repeat, but you don't see it in context, which is why sparring is so important, because that's when you learn how to actually use those moves in a practical way.
Absolutely.
All right, let's take a break and go to the jiu-jitsu baseball.
Okay, you're gonna attack him? Oh, how did that go? How did that feel?
Where's my leg, Micah? I'm serious, Micah. No, don't break my leg. Trust you. Micah, tell me you're not gonna break anything. I'm not gonna break anything.
So you came to Trinity last year as a sophomore. You came at the beginning of the year, right? Oh, freshman year,
Yeah.
sorry. But you came at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, I did.
And you're just coming off of being at Veritas. Do you want to talk about your old school experience and like the journey to Trinity?
Sure. So, there's a lot of changes that happened. So before Trinity, I was like teaching myself some subjects, and I was taking some online classes with Veritas, and then I had 1 or 2 classes with a preparatory school near me, Logos Prep, and it was really weird because I'd be teaching myself some things, I'd be being taught other things, and I would just be going from place to place, and sometimes just be sitting in my room the entire day. So, yeah, Veritas was really hard. Like, the omnibus curriculum they had, which is basically, the equivalent of humanities, was super tough when we had to read so much. Like, I think maybe 70-80% of the stuff that we read freshman year in TCS was in, like, 7th grade. So that was real tough, and we read so much in such a, small time frame that I don't remember 90% of the stuff I learned from it.
That was a low point overall. And then you said that there's a lot of struggle there, and would you say that you came out of that with stronger faith, or like what was going on there in terms of faith?
So at that point, I didn't have too many like great influences spiritually. I mean, I didn't have too many bad influences, but there weren't too many good influences either. Like I really just had my church and then just a few of my friends, but like the Boy Scout troop that I was in at the time wasn't too good, and I was in my room for a lot of it. So I'd say I was definitely at a low point when it comes to my faith at that point, but I pulled through, you know. Devotions and stuff like that really helps.
Devotions are very good.
Yeah.
Do you do like Bible app devotionals, or like where is that?
Generally, stuff like that. Sometimes I'll, just go through. I'll choose one book of the Bible. I'll go through that by paragraph and see what can I learn from this.
Do you still do that today?
Yeah, I do.
Can you think of anything that you've learned, or anything that stuck out in the last month?
Ooh, last month. I mean, not anything like super different. I've just been trying to fortify what I've already known, mainly.
Yeah, I think that's important. Like, Paul talks about like stirring people to reminder of the things that they already know.
Yeah. One thing that I do like is sometimes I'll notice themes that I've learned from TCS in scriptures. So when like Paul goes to talk to the Greeks, he addresses them as, thinkers, because he knows what their ideals are, and so he addresses them as such, and I think that's really cool.
It is cool. Because it shows that the Bible was like written by real people who are obviously inspired by the Holy Spirit, but they were like living in culture.
Right.
And we're reading about that culture that they were living in.
Yeah.
Same thing with Aristotle, right? Mm-hmm. So like the Bible will mention, I guess, different philosophies and different things. I forgot what it was, but like I think Paul talks to somebody, maybe it's the Corinthians, but like I think maybe it talks about in Acts, but he like tells the people where is the place where all the philosophers used to think
Athens?
in Athens, but like it's called the
Colosseum?
Pantheon.
No, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Paul just tells them, "Oh, you believe in like an unknown God,"
right?
Which is what Plato believed in, right?
Yes,
like he just believed in some omnious, like unknown God who's supposed to be perfect in theory.
Plato, though, correct me if I'm wrong. Plato was before
Yes.
the Bible, though. So
yeah,
then
Plato and Aristotle.
Yes. Okay.
Before
Yeah.
that.
So yeah,
not before the Bible, but before the New
before,
Testament.
yeah, before
they had like the shrine of the unknown God.
Yeah. Which is like
and Paul addresses that too. He's
Yeah.
like, yeah, this is the ideal God that you're talking about right here.
well, sort of like they didn't really believe in the true God.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
obviously.
But yeah,
But he's speaking to things that they already knew.
Yeah. And it's like so different because like the Greeks would believe in an impersonal God, and then we believe in a very personal God who's compassionate and who's so compassionate that he died for us. So I don't know. It's interesting because like the Greeks weren't opposed to the idea of a God.
Right.
They actually loved the idea of gods.
They had a few.
But just not a holy one. So I don't know. So on the topic of Plato and Aristotle, what's one book that's do you asked us this question the other day? Oh. Do you feel like the things that you read at Trinity, like specifically like the humanities books, improve you as a person, or do you take principles from the books,
or are you just reading it to like get it done, like
Yeah.
it's an assignment?
Yeah, but now like with TCS, we're taking it at a much slower pace, so I can really actually go deeper into the content. So I'd definitely say a bunch of the books that I've read at TCS have helped me.
What book are you all on now?
We're on Dante's Inferno.
Inferno.
Yeah.
That one takes.
I
a
love
while.
it, but that's one of the things I read at Veritas, and I think that was probably my favorite book that I read with them.
I'd
Did
say
you like the Inferno?
I'm more of a fan of Paradiso.
Really?
Paradiso.
That's a pretty
Paradise.
unpopular opinion right there.
I
Everyone
quite
only
enjoy
talks about
Paradiso.
Inferno.
Inferno, and I did like Inferno was my
Right,
second favorite.
of
What,
course.
what was the third one? Again?
Purgatory.
Purgatory
was the
was
worst.
trash.
Yeah.
Purgatory was garbage, but Inferno was pretty good. Paradiso, I think that's just the one I paid the most attention to because I like made it. I like set a goal at the as we were taking notes, and I'm like, okay, like this is gonna be the one I really focus on.
The one you understand.
The one I
Yeah.
really try to get.
That's
Inferno
nice.
was like I read it, but it was still like a little confusing. I still forget what's the second one. I literally
Purgatorio.
forget. It must have been. It was so bad. Purgatory was like I don't care about Purgatory, but Paradiso, yeah, that one I really try to understand.
The grammatical like scheme of things in Inferno is kind of weird to get used to.
It's still you're not gonna. I mean, maybe you do, but like it continues on.
Iambic
These other two books.
pentameter.
Terzarima.
Tertiary.
Yeah, what
All
was?
the
I don't think
threes.
Dante was Dante iambic pentameter.
I think
I don't-
so.
I'm not sure.
I don't
Oh,
think
maybe
so.
not.
I didn't
don't
go
think so.
deep into pentameter, at least.
Well, I would
reading
only know
Inferno the
because we
first
took
time.
notes on it. Like I'm
Yeah.
not the type of guy. I'm gonna look
Yeah.
at a book and be like, oh yeah, that's the iambic. Like it's just stuff that we would learn about.
I know it exists. I don't know how to identify it.
Yeah, I'd have to agree.
What do you like specifically about Dante's Inferno?
It's a very interesting, or I guess unique version or interpretation of hell. You know, he orders them by like 7 deadly sins, right?
Yeah.
So that's a very Catholic concept, and he has very unique punishments, I'd say. And one of the things I like is how the 3 big traitors are at the very, very inner circle. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Also, it's cold down there, which is most people think is just hell is hot, 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 right? Dante's
sense.
like it's cold down there.
Which makes sense because it's like your heart's. What's this saying? Like your heart's cold, or like you're so cold.
sure.
What's this saying? Like that that implies like you're evil and
Right.
stuff. So I guess there is sort of that idea that like cold could equal evil or
Yeah.
sin
Yeah.
and stuff.
And like the idea would be that like if God is like heat and warmth and love, it's the absence of all that.
Yeah,
and it's
just
frozen.
pure frozen.
And it's so different from the way Satan is portrayed in Paradise Lost, which, like, Satan in Inferno is very impersonal, doesn't have a lot of character.
Yeah, Paradise Lost is almost like the lead.
Yeah, he's like a very
least at the start.
charismatic character. I don't know. It's interesting how different people would portray it.
Right.
I think I agree more with Milton's
Yes.
portrayal of Satan.
Right, because he's supposed to be cunning, right?
Yeah.
He's not just like this big bad
Monster,
monster, kind of like he
eating
is in
people.
Inferno. Yeah.
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 Yeah. And, like, I guess Milton sort of portrays Satan like a person, if that makes sense.
You'd believe that this Satan in Paradise Lost tempted Adam and Eve and like
Yeah.
Right.
but the monster in Inferno, like that's just I wouldn't believe that this is the guy who like outsmarted like Adam
Yeah.
and Eve.
Right.
Like, that's just a
Exactly.
monster. Or yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So from there, you pulled back from all this homework. There's all this like overwhelming homework, and you just went straight to Trinity last year. I mean, how was the transition?
It took a while for me to get used to everything because I only had one class at the prep school, so I would just go there for about like an hour or two and then come back. And it was also kind of like Trinity in that it was a like 2 or 3 day a week school.
Hybrid school. That's what
Yeah,
we call it,
hybrid. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it took me a while to get used to the entire schedule layout, lesson plans, pretty much everything. Except for home days. Home days were pretty easy because I was used to that.
Really?
Yeah.
The school days were the hard part?
Yeah, because I had never been to full school before. It was just one class. I'd go there and leave.
It was just like weird to be there.
Go
for
from
so long.
class to I had never had to go from class to class before. It's a completely
weird
new
thing.
thing.
Very challenging.
Even from elementary to middle school, because I mean, did y'all switch from class to class in elementary at Trinity, right?
No, only
you
middle
just
school.
have one class. Okay, yeah. So from elementary to middle school, I guess it was the same for you. That
Yeah.
was also different. Like you were just in one class in elementary, then middle school, like all of a sudden, I have
like,
like
it
a
was
locker,
fun.
I have everything. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Like, it kind of sucks to be in the same.
Especially at Tanglewood, because that was like a larger school. Because like you could walk to like opposite ends of the building for your classes, like pass by people in the hallways. Like that's such a cool social feeling. And at Trinity, it's kind of like, yeah, well, I see you every day, or like same
know
like
everybody.
40 people. Yeah,
I mean, our grades are pretty small, so
absolutely.
you kind
It
of
is a
can't
s-
not know everybody.
Exactly, it is such a small school. That's one of my biggest gripes. Maybe one
That's
of my
true.
only main gripes.
Like,
I really don't like the size.
I would like there to be more people, but then again, keeping it small is
It has
a very
its
big part
benefits.
in staying with
Yeah.
the fundamental core beliefs of the
Exactly.
school.
I understand it. I don't diss the decision. It's just,
Right,
I'm
right.
just a social person, so naturally, like,
Yeah,
I
of
would
course.
prefer if there were more people.
Mhm.
But it's all right.
Is that?
So in terms of future career, you
this-
had a very interesting
Very
answer.
interesting. This is the first career. This is the first person I've ever heard say this career for like their dream career, and I don't disrespect it at all.
Yeah.
I actually very much respect it. It's
Very
just
practical.
I would not expect it at all.
What do you want to be when you grow up, Micah?
I would like to be a pharmacist.
Pharmacist.
Yes.
Very nice.
What is your reasoning?
Oh, there's a few. Pays good. Like immediately once you're done with a few years of med school,
Med
good
school?
pay. Yeah, there's a little bit. I think you have to go do some programs. There's pharmacology.
But it's not as long as normal.
It's not as long
Okay,
as
yeah.
if you want to be a surgeon or
Yeah.
anything like that. Yeah. The hours are pretty nice. I mean, a lot of the jobs are just like your normal 40-hour work week.
Do you know pharmacists?
Yes. Yeah. I think one of my dad's best friends is a
And
pharmacist.
he's like, it's pretty chill.
Yeah. And he's got a PS5. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's like
I
when,
also
you
own a PS5. Pre-ordered
So-
it day one.
Dang. All
Anybody
right.
who has a
November
PS5
12th. November
He-
12th, 2020. I remember that day.
As long as it pays enough to get a PlayStation 5, I think it's a good job.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh my.
Priorities are straight with this man. I
Nice.
appreciate that.
So Shane, how many people go to your church? About?
Oh my gosh. On a good day, we can get like close to like 150 on a good day. On a normal day, it's like 100 or less, mostly less than 100. So it's a small membership, but the church itself is pretty big. So
Sure.
it's a little weird.
Like large building.
It's a very large building.
Okay.
Yeah.
It should fit way more than the amount that goes.
And then I go to a sub 100 church as well. Micah does
Around 100.
around.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting because a lot of the people that I know go to larger churches, and I'm assuming the same for you guys.
That's nuts.
So same thing with going to a small school. Everyone knows everyone, right?
Yeah.
And because of that, we're all pretty involved in our churches as well. Like Shane
Yep.
does lots of camera, like audio stuff
Sound,
and tech stuff. And Micah, you do tech stuff as well. I mean, you get to like try out jobs that most people wouldn't be able to do at a big church. Like Shane couldn't be the main tech guy at First
No,
Baptist.
I'm not even that good of a tech guy. It's
That's
just
the
I
type
know
of thing
enough.
they hire a completely different dude just for that.
I know enough to get it done, and like with the materials we have or the tools
Right.
we have,
Yeah.
so it's easier. But yeah, you put me to be like that guy like Lakewood or something like
Yeah.
Joel Wilson Church, like I will fail. Like that service will not happen.
Completely different equipment.
Yeah, that's a different field. But yeah, that is 100% you're right because it's a smaller church. I guess they trust me more, and it's just overall easier than.
But like you get to try out more things,
Yeah.
and you get
Yeah.
to like dip your foot in
Absolutely.
more water rather than you just having to kind of like watch. what
100%.
they do. More opportunities to serve. Yeah, and I think that it's an interesting discussion because small school, small church, small community.
Oh my gosh, you're right. Yeah.
Would you want to go to a big college, go to a big church, and all kinds of stuff like widen out your people group later on?
I would say college. I don't really care too much about how large the college is, as long as they have a good, pharmacology school, right? For when it comes to churches, I'm fine with smaller churches. Maybe a little bit bigger than my current one would be optimal, I'd say, because I want the church to be small enough that everybody knows everybody, and there's not like cliques or anything, but not too big, not too small. I'd say as long as there's more people my age.
Do you think you work better in like small communities or larger communities?
I don't have too much experience with large communities, so
Yeah.
I don't have enough experience to say
neither.
that.
Shane has experience with large communities, kind of from camp.
From camp and from
public school.
elementary
Yeah, public school.
Yeah,
That'll do it.
What do you
was
think about that contrast?
Between a large and small community?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Micah said it. Like, in a small community, you know everyone, right? Trinity, like, I see people in the hallway, I know who you are. Tanglewood, Briar Grove, or camp especially, I'll see people, like other counselors I work with, or other students if this is public school, and I'll be like, I've never seen you. Like, I didn't even know you go here. I didn't even know you work here. So it is very different. But at the same time, if you're a social person, having all those people that you don't know, then all of a sudden you bump into them, you can make friendships throughout the entire year at public school. You can make a friend the last month of school. You can
Do
make
you
a friend
feel like you do
in the
that,
middle.
though? Or do you just stay with your group?
I mean, in terms of being a core friend group, like this is my group, it usually stays the same. But 100%, I'd get like side friend. Or I don't want to call it side friends because that seems evil.
Acquaintances.
I'd have other. I'd
Right.
100% make like other acquaintances later on in the year. Later on in the year at school. And there's camp where, I'd have to work some of the stations. I'd be, partnered with someone I hadn't met yet, and we'd talk. And because the stations are long, it's like 2 hours, and you're helping the kids. And then by the end of that station, like, you're pretty close with that person, and like you're excited to work with them again. So 100%, I think there's an upside to it.
Yeah. But then it's interesting because you can't have a ton of super strong relationships.
Yeah.
So you still have a similar amount of close relationships.
Yeah.
It's that added on to that you have a bunch of very loose relationships.
Which I think it is good to have acquaintances to other loose relationships. I don't see an issue with that at all.
Yeah, I don't think I do either.
Yeah.
And then the thing about small communities is that there's a lot more accountability, right? Like
sure.
if you go to like a huge church, you can easily go in and out, and nobody really notices.
For churches, I'm not a huge fan of the large churches. I think church is an example where the small community is better, in my opinion, because 100% the accountability is there if it's a smaller church. And I think accountability in church is very important.
Yeah. Well, that's been the podcast. That was about 35 minutes, 40 minutes.
Good length,
I think
good
it was a
length.
good length. Micah, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it, man.